Misua is probably the thinnest noodle in the world. Is Misua the thinnest noodle you have ever seen? In my case, it is. We grew up eating misua in the Philippines. It literally translates to noodle threads because they are as thin and long as threads. When I visited my friends in Taiwan a few years ago, I was very happy to see a misua noodle stall in Ximending, Taipei. There's a long line of people, more like a crowd, waiting to get a cup of this comforting noodle dish. They made their soup with offal and served with fresh cilantro, garlic sauce, chili sauce, and black vinegar. It was so good. Misua originated from Fujian, China, probably because of trade and migration to the Philippines by people who are like me, troublemakers. I'm pretty sure people from China were forbidden to leave their country by their emperor, but my fellow free-spirited people still decided to leave. My version is made of tender meatballs seasoned with ginger, garlic, scallions, salt, and pepper. You can definitely do it Taiwanese style and serve it with chili oil, fresh garlic sauce, fresh cilantro, and black vinegar. So right now we are preparing our seasoning for our meatballs, and because we are gonna stick this in our meatballs, I'm gonna put it in a food processor so they are super tiny. You don't really need to peel your ginger, but since the ginger I'm using is kind of old and it's got some hard stuff all over the place, I'm just gonna peel it. I'm also currently using frozen scallions because sometimes I buy too many scallions, and if you ever have a lot of scallions in your fridge, they might go bad after a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So you can either put it in a glass with water or you can just stick it in the freezer. And you don't need to remove the root part, it's actually full of flavor. For this one, just chuck everything in. Add 1/4 cup of water in your blender so it would blend it smoothly. It's okay. The water is actually help make your meatballs nice and tender. We're gonna add 2 eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of white pepper, and then mix it all together in one direction. Mixing it in one direction would help the proteins create fibers so that when you drop them in your hot water, they don't disintegrate. And also we're going to use flour to help them stick together, and a little bit of more water so it's not very dense. This is actually some people make their dumplings so it's nice and juicy inside. They either mix some kind of gelatinous soup or water to make it a little softer. I forgot to add my white pepper, so there you go. Now we're gonna need to have our pan on high heat. We're gonna add a few tablespoons of vegetable oil or olive oil, whatever oil you have, and then add your sliced ginger and onions. We're just gonna have this fried until it's nice and aromatic. We are also going to add 14 mLs of hot water. I'm using water from my electric kettle so I don't have to wait for it to boil, and once it's boiling, we're going to drop our meatballs in. So this meatballs, they have ground ginger, scallions, around 10 or more garlic cloves, eggs, and a little bit of salt. It's going to flavor the soup after a few minutes. It's going to be good. We are just gonna let the meatballs boil for 20 minutes for it to flavor the soup, and then we're also gonna add our patola. Patola is rich gourd. It's very much like a zucchini, but it's less dense than a zucchini, but it's harder to peel because of the ridges on the skin. So if you cannot find patola, feel free to add zucchini. So the ones that I have tried in Taipei is made with offal, and it was pretty good. There's a lot of umami. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of fish-based broth in there. And then once you add your patola, taste your broth, make sure it's seasoned properly. If it's too bland for you, add a little bit of fish sauce, maybe a tablespoon at a time, and a little more white pepper if you want. So let this boil for 5 more minutes, and after 5 minutes, add your Misua noodles. These are your dried Misua noodles, rice flour noodles. Use your chopsticks or mix it together so they don't stick together. Because they are very tiny, they just melt in your mouth and they slide very fast. They just go down really fast. It's perfect if you're sick or something. The texture is very similar to saluyot, or what we call Egyptian spinach. Sometimes a little bit like okra. is really good.